This is another episode of Flavor in Your Ear podcast.
A brand new flavor in your ear.
A podcast about damn near any and every topic with no filter and zero regard for the easily offended.
Everything you say upsets somebody.
Please welcome the man behind the madness.
The most important person, with all due respect.
Let's go!
Your host and audio flavor maestro,
My man,
Marques Edwards.
Maria.
Yes, ma'am. What is going on, everyone? We are back with another episode. So I would like to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you all are in the world. I'm back with another great guest, have a great conversation of inspiration, education, and to elevate everyone's mindset. So it's me, Marques, again, with another episode of Flavor in Your Ear podcast, and my special guest here, Marie Didio. And I read her story, and it was very interesting to me. I'm always intrigued with special stories, and I always try to allow my guests to, tell about their lives and stories. It was very intriguing. First off, a little bit about me. I wanted to be an author for kids when I was a young kid, and I'm in the Air Force now, so it's a little bit different, but I still have a passion in my heart for writing for kids. And she also writes for kids too, from kids' perspective as well. And she'll get to that, of course, about her story. But I thought it was a very motivational story. I thought it was very cool and a great conversation to have. So welcome, Anna. And would you like to slightly introduce yourself before we get into our great conversation today?
Well, Marie Didio, and currently I'm writing a series of children's books focusing on adoption, foster care, stepchildren, all blended families. So it's really, the books are written from the point of view of the child. And I think there are a lot of messages for parents, and I hope to help with that process.
Outstanding. So I think that's pretty cool. I feel personally, I've been a step parent before. I've been a step parent before. I haven't adopted before, but I know that it's a conversation. A lot of people really understand the process, the things that go through, and I'm glad that you were able to go through your experience and be able to bring some light to how children feel, because a lot of times children don't have a voice, right? They don't know how to explain everything that goes on. I think it's so beautiful that you're able to capture that and and relate that to the world. So, as far as adoption, can you explain your origin of the adoption journey for you and your husband and your family?
Well, I was thinking about just where did it start? And it really started with infertility. I mean, I knew I wanted to be a mom, and it just wasn't going to happen. So, really, this is going way back. And then my current husband at the time, it just was not to be. So we ended up divorced, and I remarried, and still that pull, to be a mother was there, strong as ever. And so we resumed infertility treatments and had a beautiful baby girl. But adding to our family proved impossible. So we started down the adoption road, and just a matter of happenstance, we were connected with this agency that had a connection in Mexico. So we ended up adopting internationally, which was really the solution. We had pursued a couple of other options, but the international solution was for us. And we adopted. By that time, our daughter was 8 years old. So we thought, that's how much time had gone by. So we pursued this, and there were many older children in Mexico, and we adopted by the time we adopted her, she was a 7-year-old girl.
Oh, wow. So you had 2 girls in the house?
So 2 girls, yes.
So how did your preparation go into that? I mean, how did you feel? I mean, I know it was like a little bit of anxiousness, and what was I know it's been a little while ago. I'm trying to kind of recreate that moment for myself and for everybody listening. Just how was your emotions and feelings during that time, and what did you learn early on, about, your experience?
Well, that's such a good question, because initially I thought, oh, isn't this fantastic? We're going to have 2 girls, and I think it's been called sometimes the myth of adoption. And there are certainly, happy and joyous and lots of emotions, but I don't think I took into consideration, or I knew or was familiar with, that all adoption begins with separation and loss and trauma. So even though she was cared for in Mexico in a very loving environment, the women that cared for the children at the orphanage were called tias, and the director of the orphanage was just an unbelievable charismatic presence, and the children really wanted for nothing. I mean, her fundraising was very effective. The orphanage was, the children lived simply, but again, with love. But, can you imagine she was in Cuernavaca, Mexico, which is just a lovely, lovely place. And one day, and then the next day, she wakes up in suburban Philadelphia. I mean, that's pretty tough, for a kid. And I don't think I processed that fully. So, in a blink, her language, her food, her routine she lived with like 30 kids. How fun is that? I mean, she had best friends there. And I don't think I processed all that. So you asked about the beginning of the journey. So that was the beginning of the realization that, I have all the love in the world, but I don't have all those answers right now. And it really took time to sort all that out. And that's really what the children's books are all about.
Wow. I think that was pretty awesome what you said there, because what I got from what you said is a lot of times we don't put ourselves in someone else's shoes. Mm-hmm. You were extremely happy, loving, and everything like that, right? But the moment from the child's point of view, right? Even though there was love in the atmosphere and love and things, that doesn't mean the experience was cultivated that way, because like you said, she was in Mexico and woke up in suburban Philadelphia. So it's probably a shock. And to testament to that, I'll bring a little bit of military reference here. So I'm in the military. I'm an American citizen, right? And a lot of times we, as Americans, come here, dropped in Italy, dropped in Japan, dropped in Korea, and there's culture shock for adults. Mm-hmm. For adults. And that's right. Adults, adults when they're in a new environment, I'm talking about 30, 40, 50-year-old adults. It's a shock for them and it's hard. So to think about a kid going through that, right? Yes. That's very awesome that you made that correlation. And it made me think as soon as you said, I said, wow, I never thought about it that way, how a kid can be going through a totally different environment and the shock that they'd be going through. Now, of course, they grow into the environment, right? Yes. But that has to be challenging, to deal with that, regardless of all the love that was there. So,
yes. And so my friends and neighbors and relatives, isn't she lucky? Isn't she lucky that she has this wonderful family now? And that's true. But she cried for months and months and months. And, we sought answers. We sought the help of professionals, which I thoroughly encourage. I mean, parents don't have all the answers. And as time went on, that trauma, that separation, that feeling of loss, that doesn't just go away. And so we helped her to find other people to talk to. Everything could not be said to mom and dad, and we didn't understand everything she was going through. I mean, we tried, but so in the beginning of as this was happening, of course, it was. I began to just journal everything, and the end of that process. Well, it took about 10 years to write it, but I did write a memoir, and that was called "Love at the Border," and it was interesting because we've had so much of the border in the news, somewhat recently, and the topic and what Mexico represents, and her love. At that border, meaning it can only go so far. I mean, she wanted to love us. But I think the love from her past was kind of pulling her back a little bit, and so it took many years. But I can say that she adjusted and all is well now. But so then I began to think, what messages are there for blended families, adoptive parents, children? And I'm writing these children's books to kind of open that conversation. The story in my first book, Many People to Love, is just that, the transition. The events in the book are all inspired by true events. And I thought, well, this could be the beginning of a conversation. So, I'm the next book will be about the same young woman, the same young girl, because it's not about my daughter. I want to make that clear. The children's books are not about my daughter, because she would strangle me if I wrote any more about her. So, Mom, it's so embarrassing. So this is the next book will focus on the child's questioning about her birth mom. Why does she look the way she does? What does her birth mom look like? She's a little sad that she doesn't look like her sister. She doesn't look like her mother. And those struggles, that book is called How I Wonder Where You Are. So, these are questions that I think, families just need to kind of welcome and embrace and talk more about.
That's key. What you said about the blended family, because I feel that a blended family can be a correlation of different things, right? It's like diversity. When you talk about diversity is not always about race, gender, or religion or sex or anything like that. It's not always about that. Sometimes it's about different mindsets, different upbringings. There's a lot of different ways, right? So we talk about a blended family. I'm quite sure everyone can relate somewhat to being in a blended family, right? Because first off, all families don't just get along. There may be personality conflicts. There may be experiences and things like that. So I think it's a lesson to be learned from everyone from this. And I love that you've taken this stance, and explaining a topic that I feel doesn't get enough attention at times, right? Just from an aspect of it, because you really have me thinking right now just about, the experiences and things like that for kids, and them not having a voice to be able to,
Right. Exactly.
Express these things.
And I'm not saying I'm the expert. And another reason I'm doing these podcasts, I'm trying to reach out to listeners, to readers, to those in my community, our community. What are your stories about blended families? I have a certain experience, but I'm currently on the hunt for other nuggets of wisdom for blended family definitions, issues, problems. I mean, it is a challenge to condense those types of things into a children's book. In the beginning, I thought, I'll write a children's book. That's so easy. Oh my gosh. So it's really interesting to try and capsulize these, mega feelings that, last for years and have profound effect on child's lives into a children's book. But that's what I'd like to do, again, to initiate the conversation and invite that child to wonder about her bio mom, wonder about what if it were different. And it's not, and maybe parents to not be threatened by that, because I was initially, let's just adopt our child and shut the door. No, that's, we try to embrace her Mexican heritage. We went back to Mexico several times. After a long period of time, we tried. She said at one point, "Why did you adopt me if you can't even speak Spanish?" So, honestly, I didn't even think about that. And that was her initial, one of the things, she yelled at me at one point was, I don't want to learn English. And I totally, I get it so much now, but, then, oh boy, it was very difficult. So anyway, just to kind of invite these conversations and these tough topics is what my what I'm trying to do right now.
Yeah. So it's a tall task, but I feel like it's very important. I immediately got intrigued with the subject matter, and hearing you explain it in depth even more makes me even more appreciative that I was able to give opportunity for us to speak and have a session here. So I know you did say that you did adopt when you were married. Were there any challenges, as far as with your marriage, as far as with the adoption? Because I know, and for lack of better words, that, moms are a little bit more emotional as far as connections with kids and things like that. So I know your relationship's supposed to be emotional as well. So it's a lot of things going on there. And I just want to know, can you talk about some of the struggles or some of the things you learned throughout your marriage with the experience?
Well, again, good question, because you're always, to live in a perpetual state of anxiety or stress is not good. So we were stressed and sought to, find ways to have fun together as a family. I have to say, as far as our marriage was concerned, uniquely, maybe, I don't know whether this is typical or what, but it did kind of strengthen us. So thank goodness we we came, read from the same page, or we're of the same mind, whatever those sayings are. And we had a little bit of a divide and conquer mindset in that, we both sought time with both girls individually and together. My older daughter now, and remember, that was kind of another struggle. My older daughter was our biological child, and she had been an only child for 8 years. So all of a sudden, we were in sort of crazy town with this, all this drama, and nothing was the same, and that was tough for her. And that's another lesson that I don't think I fully paid attention to that enough. You're spread very thin, with any family change, and you just try and do the best you can, of course. But there were, lessons to be learned that both daughters needed separate and together attention, and we tried to do that. But with my husband and I, we had a divide and conquer mindset. He was very good with homework. I was very good with fun cooking. We did a lot of baking together. We made, Mexican, Italian meals, that kind of thing. So we were constantly trying those things, but it was a challenge.
Well, one thing I can say, even though you all can't see her, I can feel the will that you had during this experience. I can just tell, and like you're very humble. I can really appreciate that. Just knowing that, it wasn't easy, but you're able to talk about it today. And just by the sounds of everything you're describing, you tried. You gave effort, right? You gave effort, and I'm quite sure those young ladies appreciate that, whether they show it or not. You planted some seeds, and because a lot of people, and not to knock today's generation at all, but sometimes people quit when it gets difficult, right? They just don't know how to respond, right? And that's not to say that everyone does it, but a lot of people need a lot of motivation to do things outside of just love and care and things like that. But I really feel like love propelled you and your husband to be able to work together, and it's a really feel good story. And I'm very happy that you were able to come out on a positive end with the whole situation, as far as just your experience and learning. Another something I sense with you is I sense reflection. You have a lot of reflection going on here, and that's beautiful. Another great attribute. You have a lot of reflection. You look back on things and learn from it. So if anyone's out there listening, which I hope you all are, these are a lot of good traits as a human being that I feel like a lot of us don't practice enough. And everyone's journey and story is different, but a lot of characteristics can help you will through them. So now let's get back to the books, right? So yes. Your creative process with your books, right? You painted a very great picture as far as what led to the books and things like that, right? So how was the writing experience when you sat down and said, I know you did the journal for your daughter first, right? But when you sat down for the books, what was your thought process? Like, can you describe to me how the process was of how you wanted to compile your thoughts for this process?
Well, I had, 2 or 3 like little notebooks filled up with things. Mm-hmm. I thought, I have to get more organized about this. So one day I put together an outline for the memoir. So I finally put together an outline because, everyone thinks their story is so fascinating. And I thought, well, but this story really is. So I was determined to kind of make it, because it was a true, as you said, just kind of development. I mean, she went from 6 years old when I finished it, she was around 20. So, I really saw the whole thing. And so I run through a couple of kind of themes and struggles throughout the book and how they resolved. And it was just, so at one point I submitted it to an editor, and she sent it back with so much red ink. I was, discouraged, but her main comment was, if you're not going to be totally honest about what you were feeling and how these things affected you, then no one's really going to read this. So I had, maybe because I was trying to protect myself, maybe because I didn't want to admit I was a bad parent or whatever, I had not really delved. And so I gave myself that task. So completely rewrote a lot of it and asked myself honestly, like, what was I thinking and feeling? And I'll give you, for instance, a thing that I added in the book. So, I mentioned before that many people said, "Oh, she's so lucky to have been adopted by you from Mexico." So I used to, clip little articles about Mexico and put them in a folder, how terrifying Mexico was and the unrelenting poverty and the struggles. And I wanted to, show my daughter all these things and say, see how great it is that you're with us. Mm-hmm. And when I realized how, like, I don't know, kind of selfish and self-serving that whole thing was, I found the folder of all the articles in a closet one day, and I threw them out. I mean, it's not something that I want to say, look how wonderful I am. That's not what it's about. So, so there were a couple of these realizations, and I remembered that. I thought, well, I could have put that in the book because, parents maybe think that they're doing one thing, but upon reflection may need to change their strategy and think about their child and not their own, what makes them feel good. So anyway, I had many of these sort of talks with myself and struggles, and I think that made the book better. So we'll see. Now, the children's book was inspired by some of the true events in adjusting from Mexico to the United States, and that was the inspiration there. So I had a little bit more fun writing the children's books, but it was a long process condensing it. It's about 700 words, if you can believe that. You have to really put your mind and effort to work and come up with about 700 words that is appropriate for a parent-child discussion.
So when you write the books for children, if you could, let's say, if you can summarize or write, what's one key take that anyone, child, parent and child mix, parent alone, child alone, what would be one key take as the author of the book that you would want someone to get out of literature or whatever the stories that you write? What's if you had to tell them one thing, like, I hope that someone gets this out of it, what would you think that would be?
Well, I think one of my major, if I can say, messages kind of that are on each page is allowing your child to feel their feelings, allowing them to, feel that hurt and acknowledging it and acknowledging where they are, because that's the only way to move forward. Kind of just saying, isn't she lucky? Look at all you have now. You're in the United States. That's denying who they are. And we really we wanted her to embrace her Spanish, and I mean, in real life, I'm making a transition here. We wanted her to embrace her Spanish, and we wanted her to be as authentic as she is, which is blended. It's not just pretend that nothing happened and you're with us now.
Right. I mean, that's a way to, I think it's a very pure and natural way to embrace your reality, and, reflect it in a positive way. So how much of this experience made you more, I guess I would say, culturally sensitive, as far as like you said, keeping her Spanish heritage and everything like that. So how much did you have to more like pay attention? Because if you don't have that situation, you're not going to just be like, oh, I can't speak Spanish or things like that. Did that make you more culturally aware of the experience with the adoption in Mexico and everything like that? As far as your mindset, how you carried yourself, did you adapt any cultural like habits and things? How was that process?
Well, it just created an awareness that I didn't have all the answers, and that something that would be, appropriate for me would not be appropriate for my daughter. So I think overall we've stayed in touch with the Mexican community. I don't know if I mentioned that, but we've been in touch with the community that where my daughter came from. Locally here in Philadelphia, I'm much more aware of the immigrant situation, and so in answer to your question, yes, it just creates an awareness beyond your own family unit that honestly I think has improved and strengthened our family in a very unique way.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So how was the relationship with the girls when it first started as well? I meant to ask that earlier, but how did that? Cause kids have their own personalities, their own way to get. And like you said, your daughter was 8, so she's been the only child. So how was that experience as far as the kid? Because it's like, this is how I picture it, right? You're learning the child, you're learning the children getting together, then you and your husband are growing together. It's like a lot of different growing components here in one household, and I just want to kind of get a little bit of a vision of how the experience was when you had it.
Yes, and wouldn't that have been great if it would have been kind of a similar story? But unfortunately, the girls turned out to be just so, and it was almost funny, so completely different personalities. Oh my goodness, completely different. And I have to say that while they were growing up, they really were not close. However, at some point within the last year or so, I can't remember exactly when it was, but I asked my older daughter, I said, well, what do you think about, now that it's years gone by, what did you think about this whole adoption experience? Are you glad that we did it? And she said, well, Mom, if we hadn't done it, life would have been really boring at home. I guess we created a little bit of excitement, but and now that they're older, there is more. Well, one, they both live on different coasts. One's East Coast and one's West Coast, so that doesn't really help. But we have more an appreciation for family time together, and it's my hope that they'll continue to grow as sisters. I mean, they're still young, but it's always a challenge, even a challenge with biological children. But in this case, they're not super close. They're just very, very different. And I'm hopeful for the future.
Hey, thank you for the transparency with that. That's a reality, right? It's like you say, even with biological children, no one's just clicking on all cylinders. Personality have a lot to do, and I really hope that they do grow together in a positive way as well. It takes time, though. Everything takes time. Nothing great was built, in a blink of an eye, and things like that. So, where can we find the book? Any of your books and things like that. So I've been talking about the book. I said, I don't want to forget the part about where we can find the book. And
books are on Amazon. Anna Marie Didio, Many People to Love, and Love at the Border. I didn't even think of those as I was doing all this. I didn't even realize, oh, geez, you're really going overboard with the love. But those are the 2 books for sale on Amazon. And my website is amdidio.com. And there's a link there to connect to Amazon and the books as well. And there's the second children's book will be out this summer, I think. So that's How I Wonder Where You Are.
Okay, so you have 2 out thus far.
Yes. So the second one is not for sale just yet, but
not just yet. And do you plan on writing more?
Yes.
Okay.
Because
I won't spoil it. I just was
I said, the experience with foster children is not my experience. So I am, dedicating myself to, talking with people in the community, listening to whatever podcasts, meeting with other families that are in the foster care community. I would like to learn a little bit more about that and write a children's book. So again, my contact information is on the book and on my website, and your listeners could certainly write to me with any wisdom nuggets that they think would be meaningful in a children's book.
Cool. And also everyone listening, we will have all of Anna Marie's links in the show notes when this episode is released, so you all don't have to keep rewinding and trying to memorize the website. We'll have all that available, and I would encourage everyone to whether it directly applies to you or not, because I'm going to get the book, whether it directly applies to you or not, I feel like knowledge is invaluable, right? And a lot of us, sometimes we wait until we get into a specific situation before we get knowledge on it, right? And one thing about learning about different things, I feel like the concept of what she represents is very positive. is very open, vulnerable, and it's something that I feel is missing with a lot of people. I feel like anybody can use it as a life tip or, a life improvement pillar, they can use, because they're learning, and she's still open to learning. The humility is everything for me. I love your humility. It's just beautiful. And it shows that, this is what I promote. I every time I get a guest, I feel really good when when the character meshes like this, and I'm like, she operates out of a lot of love, care, concern, and openness, and vulnerability. That takes a lot. That takes a lot to be vulnerable and speak about. Sometimes in your life there weren't the brightest, right? But you garnered those experiences, and you have this beautiful product here today as your book, and you explain it. And being open to working with others. So anybody out there that would like to work, or have any ideas, I always promote communication. So that's something else that I would like to say. She's now my network of circle of friends as well. So I want to write later on after my military career. So I'm gonna definitely read her book so I can see how the children's books are, because I still want to write children's books myself. So you're very inspiring to me. That's first off. You're very inspiring to me. And I love that you're taking a serious topic and you're starting at the root, with kids, right? It's with kids. And I think that you're going to change someone's life's going to be changed, or lives going to be changed, reading that book, because this is a time I feel like knowledge is invaluable. I can't say that enough.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you reached out and we connected from Italy. So that's wonderful. Wonderful.
Yes. And for us to make these things happen, you all, it's always like big time differences. So I appreciate everyone's time who gives their time here. I try my best with technology to, have these conversations. We had a little bit of issue, but I think it all adds to the beauty of the episode when we get it done. It was a great session. I appreciate you for giving your time, Anna. And do you have any closing remarks first off? And how did you feel about, today's episode? Honest opinion.
Oh, well, you know what? It was a very easy conversation. You're a very natural sort of give and take host, which I really appreciate. So thank you for your, kind of asking the right questions, allowing me to tell my story. And I love to connect, as I said, with anyone that has something to share about their blended family. And I'm looking for material for future children's books, and hope that I can provide a little bit of inspiration for those. I hope with the two books I'm starting out with, of course, deal with adoption. So we'll start there and go from there. So thank you again.
Oh, I didn't mention that. Do they have pictures? Is there an illustrator?
Yes.
Oh, so I can't. Well, you all can't see it, but I see. Oh man, it's full of color. Oh, it's cool. Oh, I like it. Yeah. You didn't draw those, did you? You got no.
The artist. The artist is Tatiana Labanova, and she's raised in Moscow, but she lives in the Netherlands, and her bio is in the book as well.
Cool. This is such a great compilation of different talents. That's why I love book writing, right? It's like all these different talents into one to convey one message. That's pretty cool. I'm like a little kid right now. I love it. You really inspired me just talking to you about what writing is and expressing thoughts.
And it's important, if you're going to do those children's books, it's important to connect with the illustrator that has your vision about what that child looks like, and the emotion component, which, if you're writing a book, of course, that's not part of it. But I didn't realize how important this illustrator, there's millions of them out there, but to connect with one that really captures your vision for the book is so special. And Tatiana is wonderful.
That's another testament to take your time and get the right pieces in place. As you can see, I hear a lot of, don't rush the product, trust the process, get the right people, because the message is more beautiful. I feel like when you get all the right ingredients into it to make a great, finished product. So I'm very excited about the book. I'm definitely going to get it. Let you know how it is. I'll send you email, let you know how I think about it.
And those of you who get the book, leave a review on Amazon. I'd love to hear I love your feedback.
And I look forward to seeing more content from you, and maybe in the future, somebody might see your book and make a cartoon out of it. You never know. The sky's the limit, right? I mean, I loved it. I love the creative energy. So I really appreciate you today. It was fun. It was heartfelt. I really enjoyed it. The conversation, it was great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We thank everyone out there listening, wherever you are in the world. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, driving, just waking up, going to bed, tucked in at night. This show is for everybody in the world to get something from. And we really appreciate everyone listening. We appreciate your time. And we will be sure to catch you all in the next episode. But for now, you guys to go. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode. Please leave an honest review, subscribe, and share. Listen to us on all platforms. Follow us and ask questions on Twitter at Marques Podcast Mailbag. Follow us on IG at Flavor in Your Ear Podcast. And like our Facebook page, Flavor in Your Ear Podcast. For exclusive content, info, special offers, and free entry into our monthly giveaways, send your email address to flavorinyourear247@gmail.com to join our email list. If you're anxious, we have a snippet following our next episode's topic. Peace and love.